Anyway, so let's go ahead and jump in. Let me tell you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the occult in the sense, coming from the sense of what people believe it is. We talked about the definition of the occult during the introduction back the beginning of February. And I will just review that ever so quickly right now, so those of you that haven't been watching from the beginning can kind of pick up where we are today. When I say the occult, and again, please understand, anything that I share with you today is literally of my own experience. I have been involved with the occult most of my life, and again, I will break that down to help explain that in just a moment. But what is the occult? I look at the occult as exactly what it's defined as. It's hidden information, hidden knowledge, something that is not seen with the naked eye, or is not out there, not being taught in schools, not necessarily in a library. It's basically hidden knowledge. Now, there's a lot of confusion as to what the occult literally is. And for me, we talked about in the beginning how witchcraft and paganism overlap. Paganism is basically the religious, spiritual path that many times witchcraft is involved in that. Wicca, the religion of witchcraft, a religion, I should say, of witchcraft, falls under the umbrella of paganism. And most of witchcraft and or magical practices would fall under the umbrella of the occult. So for me, the occult and actually the New Age and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that falls under this big umbrella. There is no clear categorizing of what would fall under the occult, other than that which is hidden knowledge, dealing with the paranormal, witchcraft, magic, etc. So I wanted to share with you, I wanted to start off today by introducing you, if you haven't already, to introduce you to one of the most well-known people in the occult, and that's Madame Blavatsky. And I'm going to give you her definition. Let me just look this up ever so quickly. Where'd she go? Where'd she go? I'm going to share with you what she talks about when it comes to the occult. So this is Madame Blavatsky, in case you don't know what she looks like. She's pretty well known for creating the Theosophical Society. She's got a lot of haters, she's got a lot of supporters, but no matter what your feelings are about her, she is quite a powerhouse when it comes to the occult and or magical practices. So basically, the way Madame Blavatsky explains it, she says, the misconceptions surrounding the occult are as varied as they are fanciful. This is especially true of those who have been led to believe that the occult is synonymous with witchcraft, black magic, and everything evil. This assumption is false. There have been and are many devout Christians, such as Sir Isaac Newton, who have studied the occult sciences. Nor is it generally known that Albert Einstein, not only a firm believer in God, but drew on the occult scientific teachings of Madame Blavatsky for his ideas. Mahatma Gandhi was another deeply religious man whose study of Hinduism was first awakened after reading The Key to Theosophy. Unfortunately, many who say they are occultists and magicians have no clear idea what they are involved with and confuse magic with occult science. Such are those who imagine that a few magic spells and incantations are all that is needed to become a full-blown adept, like Bulwer Lytton Zanoni. That was a great book, by the way. Others believe that if that's the book, I think it is. Others believe that one only have to travel to India or Tibet and sit at the feet of some unwashed guru for a few months to acquire the wisdom of the ages. Yet others put their faith in ceremonial magic and employing the instructions given in various grimoires. Both old and new regard the occult as nothing more than a means of satisfying their own selfish desires. In short, the lenses through which most seekers view the occult are as multicolored and varied as human fancy can make them. So that leaves quite a big open window, doesn't it? What is the occult? It's many, many different things. I'm sitting here looking for an image here. Forgive me. Just like we were talking about with paganism and whatnot, there are many definitions when it comes to the occult and when it comes to magic and paganism. Again, for me, it's just all the things that are considered hidden knowledge. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. Again, it's going to be a little vague here, but hopefully this will just give some clarity. A lot of the things that are what I would consider being a part of the occult are, let's say, for example, channeling, crystal healing, out-of-body experiences, astral projection, palmistry, tarot cards, mediumship, energy healing, Reiki, many practices. Now, for me though, all these things I just listed, channeling, energy healing, alchemy even, all of these are specific studies within the realm of the occult. She said in the article I just read, the little excerpt, it said the occult sciences. So these are, how should we say, specialized aspects of things that would lie within the occult. Now, do pagans practice channeling, crystal healing, astral projection? Many do. Do magicians, Western esoteric Kabbalists, practice these particular things? Many do. These are different skills, and I say this very often, and I hope this doesn't confuse things more, and actually I hope this inspires you more, that when we are learning about the occult, when we are learning about magic, when we are learning about paganism, we are going to be drawn, just like when we're having our awakening or we're getting into activism, we're going to be drawn to specific subjects of study. Some people are drawn to herbal healing. Some people are drawn to magical ritual. Some people are drawn to palmistry. So we each all have innate gifts that we're going to be drawn to, and that what I mean by innate, it's something that's already within us that we're just going to develop and draw out. Psychicism, intuition, these are all part of us as human beings, no matter whether we practice occult, paganism, or magic. We are all innately intuitive. It's just we find different tools, and again, I use the term tools as a way to describe channeling, crystal healing, out-of-body experience, and whatnot. But do they all fall under that guise of the occult? Yeah, they do, and many fall under paganism and witchcraft and magic. I know this sounds a little confusing. And if you've missed the first couple weeks of this, I hope you'll go back and kind of catch up on that. But there is a difference. Occult science for me is, how shall we say, it's, again, a very specialized way of looking at all of this. So let's break down some of these particular tools. And let's start with channeling. Channeling does fall under the umbrella of the occult. Channeling falls under the umbrella of New Age. Channeling falls under the umbrella of magic, especially and particularly white magic. And in many aspects of pagan ritual, channeling is involved. Drawing down the goddess is a perfect example of channeling. If you've ever been involved in a pagan ritual or a Wiccan ritual, there's a segment of the ritual, a very common segment of the ceremony, whether it be a full moon ceremony, usually a full moon ceremony, where we do something called drawing down the moon and or drawing down the sun, which is channeling the goddess, a goddess, and or god or goddess. In Santeria, it's a very big part of, and I believe, I'm trying to translate it correctly, it's like riding the horse or getting ridden. The spirit rides them, and the spirit moves through them. So that's in pagan ritual and whatnot. Now in magic, one of the aspects that we talk about in magic, especially in white magic, and this is the one that I particularly focus on. Many of you know me from when I started doing this back in 2000, publicly, when I started coming public and becoming a YouTube personality, blah, 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 on the radio show. It was all about my book and my channeling the emissaries of light. So that was kind of how I came out publicly, was as a channeler. But now you'll notice that my work is leaning, and this is what I focus on now. It's not necessarily to channel the emissaries of light and be a one-trick pony for you. I don't want to be the freak show, sideshow, channeling aliens or whatever it is. I firmly believe, and this is from the information they've given me, that it's important for us to learn to channel our higher self. So you'll notice a lot of the work that I do, that I'm involved in, and that I focus on and specialize is in teaching people how to channel their higher self, and through channeling your higher self, you're channeling source consciousness, God, goddess, whatever you want to call it. That is a part of white magic. That is the goal of white magic, is to be a channel for the divine energy, the great God energy, the great goddess energy, the great source energy, or as the Freemasons, the great architect in the sky, or whatever. So channeling is one aspect of the occult and one of the tools that we use. Another one is crystal healing. Crystals, as many of you know, are mostly made of Beverly will kill me if I get this wrong. Beverly the Crystal Crown. Listen to her shows on my archive. She's really great. They're carbon, and a lot of them are silicone based, but crystals have a specific frequency, and they absorb energy, and they also emit energy. And just like any recipe, when you mix specific frequencies or energies, or how shall we say, I want to say ectoplasmic, but I don't know if that's the right term, imprinted imagery or whatnot that's stuck in the particular crystals, it's going to emit that, and combining certain crystals is going to release a certain type of frequency and or energy. Combining that with sound is even more incredible. I used to have a lovely woman I used to work with back in early 2000s in Hollywood in South Florida. And she would do crystal and sound healing on me, and it was just absolutely amazing. She would work with the tuning forks, have the crystals at every chakra, and and the tuning forks with each frequency of every chakra. So you combine that all together, and I talk about clearing and cleaning and waking up your chakras. It's an absolutely amazing experience. So crystal healing is another aspect of all of this. Out-of-body experience and astral projection. They're a little bit different, and they're a little bit the same. I would recommend, if you are watching this, please go to my website, bernardalvarez.com. Go to the Just Bernard Show archives and listen to the show we had with Graham. He was absolutely amazing. He specializes in it, and we do have a great hour of experience talking about astral projection, out-of-body experience. But how does this fall into the occult, and how does this fall into witchcraft and whatnot? Shamanism, perfect example of out-of-body experience and or astral projection. My experience with the emissaries of light, and again, everything kind of layers on top of each other, so I hope I'm not getting too confusing here. They're all kind of layers on top of each other. When I went on my shamanic vision quest, I had an out-of-body experience. Whether it was astral projection or just an OBE, it's neither here nor there for me. That was when I met the emissaries of light and brought them into my field of consciousness. Out-of-body experience can be used for healing. It can be used for channeling. It can be used for, well, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, which is actually, they turned it into a comedy, Staring at Goats, talking about the way the military uses it, remote viewing and whatnot. It can be used for many different things, positive and negative. And I guess this is a good time for me to say that the occult is neither positive or negative. It's how you use it. No matter what you do with these tools, they are neutral. Just like magic is neutral. Just like paganism is neutral. Just like any religion is going to have good and bad people. Any practice is going to have good and bad people. There's nothing evil, inherently evil about anything that I'm talking about. But it can be used for evil. Look what the military does. It militarizes things that can be great for humanity and turns them into weapons. Same thing can be done with everything we're talking about here. So always, know what you're doing and make sure you have integrity and you're grounded. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. So out-of-body experience, astral projection, it's a great way to practice shamanism, to get into shamanism. One of the things that I was taught, the very first thing I was taught by my teacher when I got on the path of shamanic practice, is that a good shaman has a foot on every level of consciousness. How do you do that? You do that through visiting those levels of consciousness, whether it be the physical plane, the mental plane, the emotional plane, the astral plane, the spiritual plane. It's having one foot grounded. Yeah, we have more than 2 feet on the astral. No, I'm kidding. Having a connection with all of those. That is the basis of a way that we can use out-of-body experience and astral projection. Another tool that can be used is palmistry. Now, when I was, I guess, in my early years, like when you're in college, you study all the basics and then you kind of pick a focus and specialize in something. In my early years, yes, of course, I studied palmistry, maybe for like 6 weeks. Palmistry I find to be very interesting. I kind of have an issue with anything that is written in stone. Palmistry is very helpful in divination, and some people are really good at it. And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the left palm and the right palm have 2 completely different meanings. Oops, sorry. I'm gonna pull up this image that I have actually, because it's gonna help me actually. Yes, there we go. So palmistry is about reading specific lines in your hands. And if I'm not mistaken, the left hand means like what is happened and what could be happening is the other hand. I'm not quite sure. I really don't remember it much. It's a pretty fascinating skill to me. The people that do it well, I find, are really good at it. Some of them are just horrible charlatans. So that's why I'm weary when it comes to certain tools and aspects of them. We're talking about the occult. Unfortunately, there are a lot of charlatans, a lot of fakes out there. That's why I always say teach yourself or go to somebody and learn it yourself so you can tell what's right and what's wrong. Never really put all your faith in somebody else. It's not a good idea. And if anything, and we'll get into that later, always get recommendations with people you're working with and make sure that they're on the up and up. Anyway, palmistry is one aspect of the occult, or would fall under the occult. Divination, of course, all divination actually we could cover, is a part of the occult. You see here on the image at the top, we see the runes. I love the runes. I studied them for many years, but they never sang to me, if that makes any sense. The story of the runes, ever so quickly, for those of you that don't know, the myth behind the runes is that Odin wanted to contemplate the universe or whatnot and get answers. He hung himself upside down on a tree, gouged his eye out with an arrow, and suddenly, like below him, the runes appeared, like swimming in a sea of, I don't know if it was his blood or whatnot. A very graphic story, but that's how the runes came into being, according to that particular myth. The runes are like reading the stones in Santeria or the coconut shells. You throw the runes down, they land a certain way, in a certain order, and they tell a story. I used to love picking one rune of the day. I like them. I really like them. But they just didn't sing for me again. Everyone has a particular tool that's going to work for them. Yeah, they're very, very cool. Also on the, I guess, I don't know what we're looking at, on the left of the screen, we have the crystal ball. The crystal ball and crystal gazing is a very interesting, and actually you'll see the black mirror there. If you're wondering what that golden frame is, that's the black mirror. It's basically the same thing as the crystal ball. You're looking and staring into something to get visions. I used to do fire scrying. You could stare into the base of a fire and let the imagery come to you. I found it a little bit creepy. I didn't like it. It was just very strange to see images appear before me. Yeah, I was able to do it, but I did not like the way it made me feel, so I stopped doing it. It was very interesting to have all this imagery come to you, and then, of course, your higher self or your intuition is supposed to interpret it and interpret the imagery and what it means. Sometimes the imagery was literally just symbolic. Other times it was very, showing you exactly what was going to happen. It was literal. As well, if you are enjoying my particular radio show and you would like to become a patron, you can become a patron for as little as $2 a month, or you can make a one-time donation. But your patronage really does help me produce the show. As well, all patrons receive free gifts, free classes, free copy of my book. So head on over to patreon.com/Bernard Alvarez and check out all the cool rewards you get depending on how much you donate. Anyway, back to where we were. We were talking about divination. And I'm just going to wrap this up ever so quickly, talking about the tarot, because the tarot is my game. I love the tarot. I was very lucky when I was, even before I got involved in paganism, or maybe just as I was starting to get involved in paganism, I ended up working for one of those Miss Cleo hotline thingies, and it was so fake and so corrupt, I couldn't stand it. They had you read a script out of a book. It was so fake. It's not to say that all of them are fake, but because of that, I wanted to learn more. And my mother, actually, the card deck that you're seeing on this image, I believe that's Rider-Waite deck. My mother gave me a deck of the Thoth deck, which is the Aleister Crowley deck. We're going to go more into him in just a minute. And I've had that same deck since 1996 or something like that, and I love it. It really speaks to me. The Rider-Waite deck didn't really talk to me. So when you're studying the tarot, know this. First of all, when it comes to divination, and I think this is one of the things that many people don't understand about divination. Divination and fortune telling are two different things. I personally believe and that many people that do divination or offer you readings are doing you an injustice by saying, this is what's going to happen. I utilize the tarot in a very different way. I believe the tarot, I studied Jung for a little while, and I loved his idea of universal archetypes and all of that, and that I incorporated into my study of the tarot. That when I am doing a spread, I'm doing a story. It's basically drawing out that which is within your subconscious mind and telling you what you've been doing, why you've been doing it, what you're doing now, and as the story unfolds, the energies and all the dominoes that you've put into play, so to speak, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. If you keep doing those particular things, this is where you're going to end up. That will be the outcome. So when I'm doing a spread, I'm telling a story of this is the energies that you're working with, and this is where you're going to go if you keep doing what you're doing, good or bad. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It doesn't have to be good. But I feel that it's important to understand that free will is involved. So you can change your mind, and you can change your destiny. I don't believe that, if someone says you're going to get married in 6 months, you're going to get married in 6 months. If you're getting a reading from me and it says you're getting married in 6 months, that means that there are things at play that are going to lead to that, but you can easily change that. Our lives change every single day, or can change at any given moment, depending on what we're doing, where we are, who we're with, and what we're focusing on. So I don't believe that divination is supposed to be a tool to lay things out in stone for you. I think it's to give us clarity, to give us an overview of the energies that are at work, whether it be in our subconscious mind or in our environment or spiritually. Many of us have spiritual helpers, angels, guardians, whatever it is that might be influencing our decision making, our focus, and where we're headed, for lack of a better term. Anyway, the tarot is a really awesome tool. I do have a great video out there called I already forgot, The Path of the Fool, and it tells you the whole story of the cards to help you understand the major arcana. So you might want to take a look at that as well. Let's move on to, I want to go and talk a little bit about occultists and traditions. Many of us, Let me see if I can find. Let's talk about Crowley for a second. Nobody really likes to talk about Crowley, or that's all they want to do is talk about Crowley. So let's talk about him for just a second. Who was he? Where is that? Let's take that off. Okay. We all know this image. Aleister Crowley with a weird triangle hat on and whatnot. Crowley, I mean, he was very interesting, very colorful. He was called the Beast. His mother called him the Beast, and it kind of stuck with him. He thought it was like a great moniker, nickname. He did a lot of, how shall we say, irresponsible magic. In one of the books, I believe it's in the diary. Is it in the diary of a drug addict, where he tells his story of trying to, quote unquote, open the gates of hell, and he got too tired and left the ritual. It was like one of these 20-day rituals or something, and left the gates open. And supposedly the myth and the story that goes with that, it was in the same house that John Bonham died from Led Zeppelin. I believe it was on Loch Ness, maybe, or around that area. I forgot the story. It's been many, many years since I've read it. But, you know, he had a few nuggets of truth in his many books. I mean, he was brilliant, but he was also very insane and very irresponsible. The thing is with him is that the few nuggets of truth that you find in his books can be found more clearly and simply expressed in other books by more responsible magicians and occultists. You know, he wrote a mountain of misinformation. He put a lot of stuff in that is very, very dangerous and not really good to work with. Moreover, if we study his life, we find that his influence was very destructive, very evil. In his career, he abandoned his wives, his children, he wrecked lives. In some cases, he made people lose their minds, his disciples. He exploited his friends, he exploited his enemies. He was very much about personal gain, self-aggrandizement. He's probably the best and worst example, depending on your view, of where the selfish pursuit of fame, money, power, and sexual, you know, where sex ultimately leads. He did leave us with the temple, the Thelemic temple and the path or whatnot, and some people still follow it. Again, he's basically famous for being famous and crazy, but I will say I have read many of his books, and like I just said, you can find that information from other people, and most of it was just a lot of filler as far as I'm concerned. Now, one of my favorites, I will say, and I have mentioned her in the past. Let me see if I can find her image here. What did I do with it? One of my favorites is Dion Fortune. Dion Fortune was a part of the early 20th century occult traditions. She was a Kabbalist. She was a ceremonial magician, a novelist, an author. She was the co-founder of the Fraternity of Inner Light. It's an occult organization that promoted philosophies in which she claimed had been taught by her spiritual entities known as the Ascended Masters. So this is where a lot of that came from. It all stems back to her and her work. She wrote many great books. Psychic Self-Defense, I read. It's fantastic. I believe, was it Moon Goddess or Moon Goddess was her, I believe. And another particular book which is on the tip of my tongue. Her novels were so interesting because of the fact that she incorporated a lot of the teachings in the story. You know, the stories that she was writing in her novels, you could learn specific details about magic and Kabbalism just by reading it. I find her to be probably one of the more occultists with integrity. She really wasn't in it for fame or fortune. As a matter of fact, I think maybe she met Crowley once and didn't want anything to do with him. But again, underlying all of this, and let me just say this, and I try to say this over and over again, depending on what your calling is, what your spirit is calling you to do, for me, I will say Kabbalism would fall under Abrahamic religion. And I say this all the time, it's very patriarchal, it's very hierarchical. And that kind of work just doesn't work for me. I don't promote it. I think it's great to study. I think it's very interesting, and it's good to know it so you can get a foundation, a clear foundation of what you like and what you don't like. As a matter of fact, there are many the rituals that I've kind of interpreted into my own matrifocal way of using. A great example is the lesser banishing of the ritual, lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is a very, very powerful ritual. I believe it was written by Israel Regardie, if I'm not mistaken, from the Golden Dawn. I think that was who wrote it. But it's a fantastic ceremony, but it's dealing with Abrahamic archetypes and whatnot, and I kind of incorporated it and turned it into a very Celtic Egyptian goddessy type thing. Anyway, again, Dion Fortune, fantastic. Let's go and look at some of these other questions that we might have about, about the occult. So, I just wanted to cover, very interesting, I wanted to cover, I don't think I'm going to have time to do this, but let's see if we can do it. Anyway, let's talk about Freemasonry. I thought I might have an image for you. Is Freemasonry real? Is it evil? I mean, is there any truth to it? So the reality of it is that yes and no. It is legitimate or it is illegitimate. It's the illegitimate child of remnants of the mystery schools of Greece and Egypt. And as such, it preserved some of the teachings of the schools in the past, but it adapted itself to modern conditions. Freemasonry lost much, if not of all of the esoteric knowledge. Many of these Masonic lodges nowadays are little more than like social clubs, concerned with networking and charitable events, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Much like the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club and all that. And you can read more about them online. There's this conspiracy idea that, Freemasons are evil and they're all into Satanism and whatnot, and they're a part of the Illuminati, which I'll get into in just a second. But the reality of it is, it's more of a club for the elite, if they're elite. I mean, it depends where you go. If you're going to a Masonic lodge in Akron, Ohio, you're not going to find senators or presidents or whatnot there. So each of the little lodges are going to have their own different personality, just like any coven or church or anything like that. Depending on where you are, it's going to have its own different personality. Do people use it for social climbing? I believe so. Do people use social climbing to gain personal power? It's very possible. And do people with a lot of personal power do bad things to other people? It's very possible. So can it be utilized negatively and evilly? Yes, of course it can. But all in all, I mean, the reality of it is that you talk to most Freemasons, they're not going to know diddly squat about high magic or energy or the occult, other than wearing funny costumes and doing silly little rituals and having barbecues in the parking lot with families in the neighborhood. That's the reality of it today. Let's be real. So anyway, moving on to let's be real, I want to talk a little bit about the Illuminati. I posted a video many years ago which actually got very viral because I was very clear about this conspiracy that we have about the Illuminati. And I laugh because, here we are giving credit of all the evil in the world to one particular quote-unquote occult lodge. Now, first of all, this occult lodge started by Adam Weishaupt in, May 1st, 1776. Okay, the Bavarian Illuminati was started at that time. It was hated by the church, and they hated the church. They didn't like the power that the Catholic Church had over the world. And I don't have a problem with that. I happen to agree with that. Back then, look at what the Catholic Church did to the Native Americans. Look what it did to kingdoms. And I mean, basically, if you go back in history, especially during the 1700s and before, the Pope was in charge of all the kings, and they had to bow to the Pope and do what the Pope said. So the Pope had way too much power back then, and the Illuminati did not like that. As well, the Illuminati was involved in the French Revolution to bring power back to the people. They were not liked by the governments. So I don't know how this whole satanic panic started with the Illuminati, but I would suggest to really do your own research and let's stop giving them so much power. Are there evil entities out there? Of course there are. Are there evil people out there? Of course there are. But the Illuminati, if it does exist today, it's not the original Illuminati. I ask that you become more discerning with what you create as a concrete belief. Listening to Alex Jones or whatever it is telling you that the Illuminati are in charge of everything and destroying everything is it's giving away your power. Don't give away your power. And I think that's what the occult is really all about. It's about connecting with your power. It's about empowerment. It's about knowing how to have clarity and how to gain more clarity, how to gain more knowledge, how to gain more wisdom. All of these quote-unquote secret societies, good or bad, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are really horrible ones out there that are doing horrible things with animals and children. That probably does happen. But the same thing can be said for the positive ones that are working to heal, that are working to elevate humanity to the next level of clarity, of evolution, and of awareness. So just know we live in a 3D world. And when there's good, there's bad, and when there's bad, there's good. Not everything is one thing. There are always different layers, and there are always different layers of gray. And then finally, just to touch on one last topic. Oops, sorry. And just to touch on one last topic, because I'm hoping we can get a meditation in, is I wanted to talk about this idea of ascension. Again, the ascension is another quote-unquote conspiracy/occult concept. Now, are benevolent ETs empathically going to rescue us from the results of our own stupidity, greed, cruelty, selfishness, and miraculously create some new age paradise on Earth with the aid of their advanced technology? Are there? Is it possible? It's possible. But the reality of it is that mankind needs to take responsibility for their own actions. Mankind has to create its own paradise. And we are the ones that chose to turn our Earth into a living hell. We have to be the ones to choose to turn it into a living paradise. Are we being helped? I do believe we're being helped. I don't believe it's going to be a rapture where we all get elevated into another world or another realm. I believe we are going through a spiritual awakening, and I believe through the help, whether it be benevolent ETs, whether it be angels, whether it be our own higher selves, getting in contact with our higher selves and getting that wisdom and that clarity. Because of that, because we are taking responsibility for our actions, because we are now seeing a lot more clearly what we do not want on our planet, because of that, because of the contrast, we are now going to be motivated to create a better world. I believe we are the ones that are going to create the world, the better world. We are the saviors. If we're waiting for this, fairy tale story of, oh, the aliens are going to save us, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your energy, and to me, that is what's evil. That is what's evil, if that is the belief that we're living in. We've got to take responsibility. We've got to be the good people. But we have to make the effort. We have to walk the talk. And I believe that the occult sciences and magic and paganism and whatnot are tools to help us reconnect with our true selves, reconnect with our planet as a living organism, and hopefully enhance and elevate humanity to a greater clarity and awareness. So we do have about 10 more minutes, and I think we do have time. I've been asked many, many times to start doing a weekly meditation again. We used to do it, and I'm going to start right now. We're starting today. I would like us to start doing a weekly meditation at the end of the show. I think it's a great way to end the show. And I think you want to talk about changing the world. This is how we change the world. We change the world by changing our mind and reconnecting and bringing out the true divine essence that is within us. So we're going to do a meditation on mindfulness. That's why those of you that are watching the video, you see an image of the mind. So stay with me. And just listen to my voice, and if you'd like, you can close your eyes. And I'd like you to take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly. Gently exhale. And again, allow your mind to relax. Taking a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly. And gently exhale. And all we're going to do is to bring our attention back into our mind, into our bodies. Continue to breathe regularly at your regular, natural rhythm. And I'd like you to bring your attention to your feet. Focusing on your feet, how they feel. And allowing them to become very heavy, very relaxed. Allowing them to feel the ground beneath you. Notice where they touch the floor if you're sitting. And now taking another deep breath. Filling your belly. And gently exhale. I'd like you to bring your attention to the bottom of your legs, your calves, and your knees. And bring your attention to the muscles and how they feel. Bring your attention to the joints at your knees and your ankles and how are they feeling. Continuing to breathe, relaxed and calm. Now bring your attention to your thighs and your hips and your buttocks and your groin. And feel all the muscles. How do they feel? And allow them to become relaxed and heavy. Feeling the joints at your hips. And feeling the bones at your lower back and the bottom of your spine. Allowing all the muscles to relax. And continuing to breathe in through your nose, bringing now your attention to your stomach, your belly, the middle of your back. Allowing the muscles and the bones to become heavy. Allowing this area to become very, very relaxed. Continuing to breathe and bringing our attention now to our chest, our upper back, our shoulders. And bringing your attention to the muscles and the bones, allowing them to become very heavy. And allowing them to become very, very relaxed. Now bringing your attention to your upper arms, your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, your palms, and all the way to your fingertips, feeling all the muscles and the bones becoming very heavy. And very, very relaxed. Now taking a deep breath in. Let's begin to focus our attention to the back of our neck, the back of our head, the top of our head, our forehead, our brow, our cheeks, our jaw, and allowing the muscles to become very heavy and the bones to become very heavy and very, very relaxed. And continuing to breathe in relaxation and focus. Doing a scan from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes. Allowing yourself to remain grounded. Allowing yourself to feel heavy, and allowing your entire body to become very, very relaxed. Notice how your mind is quieting. Notice how you can focus solely on your breath. Just breathe normally, acknowledging the inhale and the exhale. You are now in this moment. You are out of your head and in the moment. You are now mindful. And when you are ready, you can slowly open your eyes. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingertips, feeling calm and relaxed. But I will see you next week. I love you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.